Good morning and welcome to Decorah UU. Oh, I'm gonna share screen. What am I doing here? Share screen, share screen. Can you see the image now? Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning and welcome to Decorah UU. My name is Carolyn Corbin. My pronouns are she, her, and I'll be leading our service today. We are a welcoming, lay-led spiritual community, moving together in time in an open search for truth and meaning. We believe in people's inherent capacity to lead ethical lives of personal fulfillment, pursuing the good of humanity. Reminder, this service is being both live streamed and recorded. We will pause recording during joys and concerns. Otherwise, anything recorded may be publicly available online, as we do post services on our YouTube channel for later viewing. If you are visiting us today, we welcome you. We are delighted to welcome our guest speaker, Hannah Breckbill, one of our local farmers. Hannah will be sharing her vision for an anti-racist food system. So we will hear from Hannah later on. I am going to point out some items in the announcements. And if you do have any announcements, you can raise your hand after I share a few items. Covenant renewal. You should have received an email. It's that time of year again. So please check your email for a note from Otter about this year's covenant renewal pledge and be sure to return them promptly. Collective Action for Racial Equity. Everyone is welcome to join Collective Action for Racial Equity, or CARE, on Tuesday, April 20th at 6 p.m. for a Zoom gathering. CARE will talk with representatives from La Crosse's Anti-Racism Coalition, Waking Up White. To join the CARE listserv and find events like these, you can reach out to me, Carolyn Corbin, and that coming event will be Waking Up White with La Crosse, hearing what they're doing, and that will be Tuesday, April 20th at 6 p.m. Send us your photos. Please send us photos of yourself and your clan. You can take selfies of doing something interesting, or send us an older photo. You can send those to me, Carolyn, and we will share them at upcoming services because we like to see your faces. Invite a friend to UU service. Friends and family can join you on Zoom with their video off and watch the services like television. You can have your friends and family sign up for our electronic newsletter, as well as invitations to services by going to decorahuu.org. Are there any other announcements? Can you please raise your hands and let's see. I don't have the right view. Are there any announcements? I'm looking for raised hands. I don't see any raised hands. Oh, Karen.
Hiya. Just wanted to let folks know that garlic mustard pulling time has arrived, and Carl Peterson has scoped out Twin Springs Park while Ellen McDonald is out of town, and there is pink and black striped tape wrapped around trees, etc., to let you know where the garlic mustard is popping up, and anybody is welcome to explore Twin Springs, look for that pink and black tape, and then pull up some garlic mustard. It should go into a bag and in the trash, not composting. This is a weird invasive species that we don't want to propagate in any way. They do have trash cans at Twin Springs that you can place it in when you are done collecting, and it would be helpful if you email Ellen McDonald to let her know how much time you spent and where you were in the park. But if you don't know Ellen's contact information, Otter can get that to you, and it's kind of a fun way to spend some time outdoors.
Awesome. Thank you, Karen. Thanks to everybody who goes out there. If you do have your cell phone, take a snapshot, please, so we can see all the fun if we don't make it out to see you in person. Are there any other announcements? Alrighty. Also, just make a note, April 11th, please join us at our next UU service on April 11th for a conversation with local poet and photographer Charlie Langton. Today's service relates to our second principle, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. Now is the time to light our chalice. Lalie Madriguera will read the chalice lighting. Please remain muted as Lalie lights our chalice.
Blessed is the fire that burns deep in the soul. It is the flame of the human spirit touched into being by the mystery of life. It is the fire of reason, the fire of compassion, the fire of community, the fire of justice, the fire of faith. It is the fire of love burning deep in the human heart, the divine glow in every life.
Thank you, Lalie. I meant to line up some more readers. If you were here at our last service, we read some Beatitudes for Justice Builders, and I like those so much I pulled some more, but I could use a couple more readers. Do I have, Sue will volunteer to read, Nancy will volunteer to read, and I have enough now because Lalie will be a third, so thank you. Okay, so the first slide I'll have Sue read, and then it will, well, actually, if Nancy, Sue, and Lalie, if you would all unmute, there's 3 per page. So if Sue would do the first, Nancy would do the second, and Lalie would read the third and then we have 3 slides of these. So does that make sense? Okay. Thank you, Sue.
Blessed are you who offer thanks and praise 5-fold for every critique. Your children will want to visit after they are grown. People will want to serve on your committees, and friends will be interested in your opinions.
Blessed are you who study the rhythms of history. You will have knowledge with which to shape the future.
Oh, blessed are you who work in coalition rather than in principle or isolation. You will meet great people, learn things you didn't know and you needed to know, and have partners for the journey when you are in the lead or in need.
Blessed are you who will not let the perfect be the enemy of the good. You will see progress in your lifetime.
Blessed are you with an active spiritual life. You will find perspective and comfort in times of loss and betrayal, and will rise without cynicism to meet the challenges of a new day.
Blessed are you who live from a place of gratitude, for you will know the meaning of life.
Blessed are you who volunteer to be secretary and take good minutes. Your words will become history, and your efforts will move steadily forward rather than running absent-mindedly over thoroughly discussed ground.
Blessed are you who discover, train, and encourage young leaders. You will see your work expand and grow beyond your own time and talent.
Blessed are you who can change your mind. You are still alive.
Thank you. You are such wonderful readers. Everybody just read, by sight. We're good at this. And special thanks to Ellen McDonald, who has provided all of the beautiful slides for us today, the photographs. Now is the time for our land acknowledgement. With this land acknowledgement, our congregation is engaging in a practice of truth-telling and reconciliation. Northeast Iowa was first home to the Iowa or Baksoche, the Sac and Fox or Meskwaki, the Dakota, and the Ho-Chunk. We recognize the ongoing relationship of Indigenous people to this land and follow their lead as we endeavor to be stewards as we go forward. Please pause with me for a moment as we commit our hearts to uplifting, standing with, listening to, and following the lead of Black, Indigenous, and people of color as we endeavor to create the world in which we want to live. This is the time in our service when we want to invite anyone who wishes to do so to share a personal joy, concern, or milestone in your life. Again, please use the raise hand feature if you're joining online. And we will be sure to give phone-only participants an opportunity. If you want to hit *6 at any point, we'll put you in the queue. And I will pause recording so that joys and sorrows will not be recorded.
Now we are. Yeah, so it's lovely to be here today. And I prepared some, kind of lengthy remarks. And then I'm also excited to talk to you all. Yeah, let's go. Yeah, so I was brought here today to talk about anti-racist food systems. So I'm going to try to distill kind of the conversation that the radical wing of sustainable farmers have been having for the past few years. And I'll acknowledge that a lot of what I have to share is pretty challenging to the status quo and can make people uncomfortable, but I'm pretty sure that you all will be willing to hear me out. So yeah, I'm hoping to talk about the dynamics of race in agriculture and in food, and then the steps we can take to build anti-racist structures as opposed to the harmful ones currently in place. So I'll get right to it. The United States' wealth is built off of the stolen land of Indigenous people and the stolen labor and knowledge of enslaved Africans. So in Iowa, the most direct history is that of settler colonialism and land ownership. Indigenous people were removed through genocide and their lands were expropriated and then given to white settlers. And it's complicated because many of these settlers were immigrants who were displaced from their homelands in Europe thanks to the enclosure of the commons and the emergence of capitalism. So these settlers worked really hard and they broke the prairie, which had been tended to by Indigenous stewards for millennia. And they turned the land into something productive, meaning that the land could be monetized, could be bought and sold, and could be turned into a commodity. That commodity of wealth created from theft has largely been passed down through inheritance within families And as farm policy and our economic system has made the family farm less and less viable, land has been consolidated, which means it's been bought as an investment by the owners of wealth. Now, the farming system reflects and perpetuates that theft and consolidation. So over 95% of landowners are white, and nationwide farm workers are 80% people of color, including immigrants who, to be clear, are not granted the same wealth building opportunities that the first immigrants here were afforded. And I've recently been giving some attention to the people who harvest vegetables in California. These people are basically super skilled endurance athletes who bust it out every single day. They're so much faster than I am. And I've worked alongside elderly Hmong ladies who tease me for how slow and incompetent I am. All that to say, our food system is dependent on the skilled, highly skilled labor of people of color, while the owners of farms and food businesses, the people who profit from the system, are almost exclusively white. I do want to say, even though we've been distracted by a pandemic for the past year, the kind of global inescapable emergency that we still face is climate change. And no discussion of food and agriculture is complete without that. So it's clear that if we want a planet in balance, we need to manage the land for carbon sequestration and diversity. Carbon sequestration happens when plants are growing and photosynthesizing and converting atmospheric carbon dioxide into carbon stored in their bodies. And then when they die, it's stored as organic matter in the soil, unless the soil is tilled up. So to sequester as much carbon dioxide as possible, we need as many plants as possible growing at all times. And as many of them as possible should be perennial. And biodiversity is also extremely threatened by climate change and by conventional monocropping of corn and beans. So to bring back biodiversity, we need to diversify the plant life on the agricultural landscape and to integrate our food production with the workings of the natural world. The reason that our farm system is so destructive and monocultural, both a monoculture of plants and a monoculture of humans, is that policy made it that way. Similarly, a constellation of entrenched policies have kept farm ownership white and farm labor non-white. Policy has kept our food cheap, has eroded our soil, has poisoned our waterways, has brought us ever closer to a climate disaster beyond our comprehension. And knowing that policy has created and defined a damaging system means that the way to transformation is also systemic. I'll get back to that. I was invited here to speak about racialized narratives in the food system, so I'll touch on that. Have you ever heard people say, vote with your fork? I've definitely said it. Have you ever heard an emphasis on education, implying that if people knew something different, they would change their food habits? And have you ever experienced a rush to solutionize food insecurity by giving to food pantries and other charities? All of these are seemingly innocuous, seemingly maybe even good, but all of them too have an underlying narrative of the individual rather than the systemic. So vote with your fork implies that consumers have the power to shape the food system that they want. If more people support local and organic food by buying it, there will be more of it to replace extractive agriculture. When we say this, though, we forget that most people don't even have the option in their towns or neighborhoods to access local or organic or even fresh food. And so many people don't have the money to be able to buy anything but the cheapest of food, which is never local and organic. The vast majority of people don't have the option to vote with their fork. And I don't want to say bad things about food charity, because sometimes in the moment that's what is most needed. But ultimately, if we want everyone to be able to eat, relying on the whims of donors and the time of volunteers is not secure or sustainable. The root of the problem is people not having enough money in their pockets. So the solutions are policy-based. a higher minimum wage, increased SNAP benefits, a universal basic income. When the burden of food choices are placed on individuals, the perceived solutions are scrappy and small. So virtuous choices on the part of people with privilege and uneducated choices on the part of people without. Unorganized individual actions cannot and will not change systems. A systemic solution to the issue of food access and sustainability is known as food sovereignty. So a quick definition, food sovereignty is a food system in which people who produce, distribute, and consume food are also in control of the mechanisms and policies of food production and distribution. So the community controls food, the food system, basically. Food sovereignty stands in stark contrast with the current exploitative and extractive corporate globalized food system. When communities have the power to define their own food landscapes, we can create foodways that are culturally appropriate, healthy, and sustainable, much more easily than when corporate giants are dictating our options. So, what do we do about it? How can our solutions be specific to our location here and systemic and anti-racist? I definitely don't have all the answers, but I'm excited to share what young farmers are working on across the nation. A big part of the problem, the racial equity problem, the climate problem, the food access problem, is our system of ownership of land as a commodity. Ownership in our capitalist economy is the only way that wealth is built. And stewardship is not a requirement of ownership. If you own land, you can extract from it and leave it barren for the next generation. In fact, if you own land with debt, you might be forced to extract from it by your creditors. There are some really interesting farm models across the country, and I'm going to highlight a couple of them before sharing what we've done here at Humble Hands Harvest. First of all, the biggest name in anti-racist sustainable agriculture right now is Chris Newman of Sylvanaqua Farms. You can look him up. He's got a lot of writing. He's been really vocal about how the small family farm model that's idealized by the local food movement cannot compete with big ag. That we as producers, as sustainable producers, need to scale up through deep cooperation with each other. We can produce a lot of food at a more human and humane scale if we have enough people to do the work. And if the work pays securely and fairly, we'll have enough people. A big part of the problem of the local food movement has been that farmers are asked to make incredible sacrifices to their own mental and physical health in order to farm. And a lifestyle of discomfort and sacrifice does not appeal to really anyone, and especially not to historically traumatized groups like African Americans. So we've had this unresilient food system because we're relying on farmers to sacrifice so much. So Sylvanaqua Farms is creating a worker-owned, BIPOC-owned business model that's collectivized across enterprises. They're creating a pool of capital that can support the startup and actual salaries of new enterprises on their land base. And they allow their farmers to focus entirely on production by having bookkeepers, grant writers, marketers on staff. As a farmer who worked on my own for 4 years, I can say that farming by day and business administration by night is exhausting. And the idea of not having to do it all is liberating. I'd love to be able to count on a wage or salary for my work, the way most of my peers do, instead of paying myself after all the other expenses are paid. I'd love access to sick days and paid time off. That's the power of a large enough collective, financial resilience, and an ability to produce food more justly without exploiting the workers. So, as you can tell, Sylvanaqua Farms' business model has a real appeal for being able to get more people and more diverse people into food production. The other model that I want to highlight is a way to decommodify land and put it under the stewardship of a community with sustainable farmers at the lead. This model is called the Agrarian Commons. In short, an agrarian commons is a locally managed land trust designed to hold land so that farmers can steward it without paying market cost for it. The Agrarian Trust is a national organization that has been supporting the startup of local agrarian commons across the United States. I think if we put our minds to it, that we could create a Winneshiek County-based agrarian commons. We definitely have enough aspiring farmers here to do the work if we can find and hold the land. So that's one thing that I'm working on right now. So that brings me to the final question. What can we do here and now to build a more just food and farming system and to undo unjust structures? What can we do to break down barriers to food farming as a viable career path? And how can we support diversity of both people and plants on the landscape? If the answers to those questions were easy, we wouldn't be in the predicament that we're in as a planet. We need to shift systems to completely transform the way we value human work and the way we care for the community of life on Earth. But I know of some local organizations that are working on shifting and building systems. One simple thing is that the Iowa Food Hub started an online market at the beginning of the pandemic to connect customers to local farmers in a virus-safe way. And over 20 farms are offering their products through the Food Hub online now. So that's a small system that is kind of starting up and hoping to reach more people. And the online market is looking for sponsors this year to keep it financially sustainable with the minimal cost to farmers. So if you're interested in sponsoring the market, get in touch with me. And then I do want to explain about my farm at Humble Hands Harvest. We're looking at the issue of access to capital, square in the eye, and we're doing things really differently. So during the same time frame that the Agrarian Commons model was developing, we were developing our own model that we call the Commons, and it's based on gifts. So we've made a commitment that every gift given to our farm will be passed on to future farmers. So as an effort to decommodify the land that we're on. So to decrease the price that anyone's asked to pay for it, any sustainable farmer is asked to pay for it. And the farm is building a house now, as I said earlier, so that we farmers and future workers on the farm too can have solid housing and indoor plumbing. We've decided that it's not a resilient food system if it forces farmers to live in substandard conditions and to overwork themselves. But both farms and housing require a lot of capital, which creates huge barriers to entry to all but the most privileged. We're taking out a great big loan to build our house, but at the same time, we've also been fundraising gifts. So every $100 that we receive as a gift now reduces the amount that we have to pay the bank by about $160. It's a lot of interest. And that increases our ability as a farm to be generous in the future, and to bring on new farmers and to support new food enterprises in our community. Every gift makes a huge difference to us, both financially and spiritually. And yeah, as we grow the commons at Humble Hands Harvest, we're creating this pool of capital similar to Sylvanaqua Farms capital to support our collective thriving as a community. So finally, for those who might own land or other wealth, please do remember that the wealth in this nation is stolen from Black and Indigenous people. So returning wealth directly to tribes, to communities of color, and to workers to use as they see fit and not as donors prescribe, that's essential to our collective and food sovereign future. So if you have a desire to give reparations to Black farmers who are best positioned to build food sovereignty in Black communities, I can share some ideas with you too. So I hope I've given you plenty to talk about and some clear options for supporting the building of better systems. And I'm happy to talk more with all of you.
Fantastic. Wow. Thanks so much, Hannah. And, thanks for opening us up straight away and just talking about the difficult truth that you know, the land has been stolen from the indigenous people who were here before us, and the labor and the extraction of value and wealth has been stolen from Black people and people of color. And I feel like that's a great way to center ourselves around this whole conversation. And I know that a lot of people are working on sort of maybe not exactly this issue, but certainly tangential issues regarding race and equity. And I wonder if, I'm just going to open it up to if anybody wants to raise your hand and has a comment or a question. I'm going to just open it up. And Lalie, you have your hand raised.
Hannah, how can we donate? Is there an address we can send a check to? Would you
Yes,
tell us,
indeed.
tell us that?
Is it okay if I put it in the chat? I can send some
Okay,
links
that
to
would be
various
good.
places.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Cool.
Thanks.
And Hannah won recognition from the Midwest Organics. Can you give us some feedback about what you heard from your compadres? Because people come from all over to the Organics conference, and that's a pretty big recognition.
My computer's being kind of slow. Yeah, it was a really, so that I received the Changemaker Award, and it was actually in addition to being for my work on kind of alternative business structures, our cooperative structure, and our other things. It was also for my work with queer farmers and building queer farmer community, and so yeah, that was a real honor. And I also felt like a little bit bashful to be representing queer farmers to the whole organic farming community, but I did my best, and I'm excited to move that work forward too.
You mentioned that, I think we should probably type this into the chat too. Is it Sylvanaqua Farms? And
yes.
can you tell us a little bit more? Where are they? How long have they been? I have so many questions.
Yeah, they're really cool, and they are only as old. They're like less old than Humble Hands Harvest is. So, so it's a fresh idea and fresh thing, but they've got a lot of energy around them. In part because they're in near a metro area. They're near Washington D.C. And they're POC led. Which is also really awesome. So they're definitely. They're scaling up by just thinking a lot bigger than your normal tiny sustainable farm thinks, and so they have this bigger land base, and they're putting farmers on it, and yeah, it's really cool, and I can't explain it very well.
And Hannah, when you were talking about carbon sequestration and how we need to grow more plants and more diverse plants and take care of the soil, I think that probably resonated with a few people that are thinking, I'm just going to double up my garden this year. I'm planting more. I'm going to plant more. So if there's anybody that has questions for Hannah about the carbon sequestration thing, well, I see Beth's hand is raised, and it doesn't have to be about this topic. I'm just throwing that out there. So Beth?
Well, I was just thinking about, you're talking about policy and how do we change policy? And it's so overwhelming, especially in Iowa. But do you think your idea of like a Winneshiek County, commons, Agrarian Commons, kind of like the energy district, having that example, which then spreads, is the way to go, more than trying to focus on the legislature in Iowa, which is so difficult to convince to change. It's overwhelming, I guess.
Yeah, totally. So we need to find systemic solutions that are not based on elected officials necessarily. Yeah, and that's why I love the Agrarian Commons model, because it isn't based on, it's based on how can we get land into this different form of ownership. And yeah, so stay tuned, because I really do think that we're gonna start like forming a board and thinking about how to do this. So yeah.
So if there are people even right here in this Zoom meeting that would be interested, they should stay tuned or reach out to you, Hannah, and say, hey, I would like to
Absolutely.
support this local initiative of a commons.
Mhm.
And, you know, some of us know Shirley Vermees, who's now a county supervisor. And I think that she would probably be interested in at least being, you know, in the loop on all of this stuff. Surely the county itself has some assets and resources that could be useful.
Yeah.
I don't know. Julie Fisher.
Yeah, I'd just like to say thanks, Hannah, for letting us know more in depth of what you're into, how things are moving along at Humble Man's Harvest. And we look forward to your thriving with the next projects that you're taking on. So please keep in touch however you can. Thank you so much. I have an idea of how much work is involved.
I wanted to share a few things, Hannah, too. I'm so happy that Lyle and I could be supportive, and we hope to remain supportive and continue. And I'm really excited about that land at Agrarian Commons. That is just great. And one of the things that I think has kind of guided Lyle and me over the years is that concept that was mentioned in the Beatitude that we read. Blessed are you who will not let the perfect be the enemy of the good. And I guess what I think of there is that many of us see there are so many people out there who aren't ready to make that jump to the perfect. They see it as a little too too far left for them, or however we may describe it. But we can make small steps. And the good does not have to be the enemy of the perfect. I like that phrase so much. And so I think that this common Winneshiek agrarian common land project is perfect and can be good both. I mean, I think it almost can pull together those two concepts. People can do something good and make a real change toward the perfect that we all want. So thank you for that. Thank you for those remarks that help clarify that.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, and to comment on the perfect being the enemy of the good, the thing that came to mind for me when I heard that was the fact that I am a white person, and so me talking about anti-racist food systems in a like very white community is feels a little bit iffy. And how do we as white people, knowing that there's no way that we can be perfect because we don't have the experience of being marginalized as people of color, how can we at least do good and get closer and also be held accountable to getting closer, yeah, as we work. So that's what I thought for that too.
I had another quick thought I just wanted to put out there, and that is many of us were well acquainted with, or at least knew of Paul Johnson, who died this last spring, this last winter time. And what a wonderful memorial to Paul Johnson it would be. Paul, who was so concerned about and loved the idea of the commons, so much. What a great chance for a memorial. Perhaps we could get some people together and put a large fund, raise a large fund to donate in honor of Paul Johnson and his beautiful contribution to our commons in this area.
That would be amazing.
Great idea, Sue. Well, Hannah, you've given us so much to think about, and we're so grateful that you're a friend and that you're doing these wonderful things and leading by example and speaking by example. I think that talking about some of these things, as you say, trying to be a woke white person, sometimes it's hard to get the words out of our mouths, but the more we practice talking about these things, the easier it gets, the more normal it gets. And these things are things that we have not talked about in terms of stolen land and stolen wealth. We haven't talked about it, and now we are. And that itself is a good thing. And it feels good to practice our talking.
Mm-hmm.
I have time for maybe just one or two more comments. Hannah, do you have something that you like to leave people with? If there's something uplifting or encouraging that you like to tell people about land stewardship or the food systems?
Yeah, I mean, it's so exciting to be headed into spring and to be filling up a greenhouse and to see the green outside. It's a nice early spring and it's feeling really good. And yeah, this time of year is always full of hope. And I know that this year on my farm, we're working on some collaborations with a bunch of other farmers to be able to bring not just our vegetable CSA, but people can order eggs from a different farm and meat and flowers and things like that. And so we're stepping forward into some new collaborations, and that feels really exciting as well this year. So.
Thank you so much. Well, to keep our uplifting spirit, I'm going to invite Lalie Madriguera. Lalie is going to sing for us, "Life is Just a Bowl of Cherries." And I'm going to paste the words in the chat, so if you'd like to sing along with yourselves muted, you can do so. So Lalie?
Yeah, here we go. Life is just a bowl of cherries. Don't take it serious. Life's too mysterious. You work, you save, you worry so, but you can't take your dough when you go, go, go. So keep repeating, it's the berries. The strongest oak must fall. The sweet things in life to you were just loaned. So how can you lose what you've never owned? Life is just a bowl of cherries. So live and laugh at it all. Let's sing it together. Stay muted and we'll do it again. All right, here we go. Life is just a bowl of cherries. Don't take it serious. Life's too mysterious. You work, you save, you worry so, but you can't take your dough when you go, go, go. So keep repeating, it's the berries. The strongest oak must fall. The sweet things in life to you were just loaned. So how can you lose what you've never owned? Life is just a bowl of cherries. So live and laugh at it all. Here we are. Good job.
That worked. Oh, fantastic. Thank you, Lalie.
Okay.
And now is the time for extinguishing our chalice. I hope you can see the screen. Okay, good, thank you. We extinguish this chalice flame daring to carry forward the vision of this free faith, that freedom, reason, and justice will one day prevail in this nation and across the earth. Ah, there's Lalie. Thank you, Lalie, for singing today.
You're welcome.
And I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Thank you to Janet, or to Lalie for reading, to Otter Dreaming for keeping us organized and playing music for us, to the UU Board of Directors, to Hannah Breckbill for being our wonderful guest speaker today. And before we say goodbye, was there anything in the chat I missed that we need to ensure our audio only participants get to hear?
You might want to read out loud the URLs for the different places that people could visit.
Yeah. Hannah Breckbill has shared humblehandsharvest.com/building-the-future, humblehandsharvest.com. Also, a GoFundMe.com. It's GoFundMe.com/F/Blackland2020. And this is a Black farmer friend of Hannah's who is raising money for Black-owned farming land in Minnesota. And what else? I'm scrolling through. And we didn't share the Iowa Food Hub, but if you Google Iowa Food Hub, you'll be able to find a lot of local farmers, including Humble Hands Harvest. And what else did I not miss? What else did I miss that I can't see? My eyeballs went crisscrossed. Okay. Well, there's so many good resources, and it's great to know that we have Hannah right here in our back pocket to help us out with making good decisions. Thank you so much, Hannah.
Thank you all. See you again sometime.
Absolutely. And this will be posted at some point on our YouTube channel, so we can share this good conversation with more people. Please join us on April 11th for a conversation with poet and photographer Charlie Langton. And I hope that all of you have a wonderful Sunday. We're about to end this virtual gathering, but please continue to stay in touch with one another throughout the week until we come together again.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Hannah, Lalie, Carolyn.
Did everybody get to see Harvey and Benita? They're live on camera.
Yeah.
Benita, Harvey.
Anita, I still need to call you back. I will.
I think Benita's talking, but Benita, you're muted.
It's of an opportunity in the next year of a property coming up in Fillmore County. We need rich people to give bunches of money to match their values and have land access. That's the notion, but I need to pick a lot of brains before I can present it to anybody. I've got to find the rich people too.
Love it. Fantastic. But I am going to sign out for all of us. So until I see you, please take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in a couple weeks.